So, so maybe I have a fantasy of, I don't know, something. I mean, you always get in trouble when you give a talk like this about some weird fantasy. Say, a common one. Fantasy about having, semi-public sex. That doesn't turn me on, but I'll just use that one. Okay. And part of me goes, that's wrong. Okay, now I'm in conflict. So I either deny that I like that, get really mad at other people who do it, or who talk about it, or just completely dissociate from it and never really realize that I like semi-public sex until I'm on a camping trip and the tent blows down and we're having sex and wow, I'm having a really good time. So we all have a part of ourselves that we don't accept. But what if our lover knows us, sees that part of us, and accepts it, even if he doesn't like it? Say, she likes to have semi-public sex and I don't, but that's fine with me that she likes to have it. So what? I mean, I don't want to do it. Maybe we're on a camping trip and nobody's around for miles. Sure, I'll do it, and then it'll feel that way. But I accept that you want it, and I'm protecting you from any disapproval I might have with you. Okay, well, that supports erotic polarity. But what if I go, oh, semi-public sex, yuck. What's wrong with you? Okay, well, all of a sudden, the level of safety in that relationship has plummeted. Sometimes forever.
So there ain't enough philosophical talks that are going to get you back.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. You got to go to therapy. And this is what makes it so hard. We enter these defensive states. And, sometimes we just give up. Sometimes we give up on sexuality. It's easy to give up on sexuality when you don't feel like having sex. A lot of people in their 30s get so tired. Small children, demands of careers, and shifting endocrine levels, all this other stuff. Why bother? I'm too late. She likes it in the morning. I like it at night. What are we going to do? Meaning, there's nothing to do. And I go, well, okay. So that's where we're starting. But that's fixed mindset. There's nothing to do. Growth mindset. Let's do something. More love is always possible, isn't it? And so let's look at that. So part of that is this know, accept it, and protect it. Extending that into eroticism, we also need this element of polarity. Also, we need to realize that we have this at every different developmental level, and at each developmental level, each worldview needs to interpret polarity in a way that works for that worldview. For instance, say you are a conformist worldview. I want to follow the sacred teachings. Well, then it's a really good idea to find sacred teachings that support you and your partner's erotic polarity. That's what Vatsyayana did when he wrote the Kama Sutra. Everybody thinks the Kama Sutra is an illustrated manual of 36 positions of sex. That's not the Kama Sutra. They didn't have illustrations in the 4th century AD in India in the way that they have them in. The Kama Sutra is 5 volumes that Vatsyayana wrote. He went into a trance. He was a guy who just was fucking his brains out in India at 400. He really felt like he was an expert at that point. And it was then had a mission from God to reinterpret the Upanishads in terms of helping people develop towards God through eroticism, starting with kids. I mean, the Kama Sutra was originally written to initiate young adolescents into eroticism. And so it's 5 volumes. And one of the volumes talks about the marriage night, which was when kids were 16-year-olds in those days. The first night, you're supposed to sit next to her and ask her about her friends. The second night, you're supposed to touch her gently and tell her the beautiful things about her. And then the third night, you're supposed to initiate her into eroticism. This is being taught 12, 13, 14-year-old boys and girls. You're supposed to adorn your body as if your body is a temple and surrender to the God in you.
Was that widely used at that time?
It was widely used in the upper classes. Yeah, and I was talking about this earlier. When you have a stable civilization like Rome, like India during those days, and it goes for several hundred years, and it's not based on sexual repression like America. It's not based. It's so easy for me to get on the soapboxes. And I have a lot of them too, and a lot less. Thank God that Bush isn't in.
Keep going.
Fucks out of my mind. But those civilizations tend to produce just about sex. The Tantric tradition is about taking the ascending spirituality, which is out of the body, the many into one, into emptiness, which is basically pure masculine presence from ever the beginning, and the descending spirituality, the one into many, the one into everything is an expression of God and needs to be experienced as pure spirit. You combine those two, and that's the Tantric tradition. Two people doing that together in eroticism is erotic Tantric tradition. And where does that lead us? Well, first it leads us into having a good time. And the data goes through 6 stages, and I love his stages. The first one is the genetic stage. Okay, so let's just face it. What's the genetic stage of